Where's my duck? Man. Hello everyone, welcome back to Foster the Meeple, a channel all about board games and board gamey things. Today we're going to be taking a look at Earth, Animal Kingdom, which is the newest expansion to Earth from Inside Up Games, who very kindly sponsored today's video. Now, I know many of you have both heard of Earth and love this game, and so I'm excited to tell you a little bit about the new expansion that's going to be coming out. So for today's video, we're going to take a peek inside of the box, and then I'm going to show you how the expansion works. But before we do that, it's probably important for us to talk a little bit about Earth in case you're new to the game. In Earth, 1 to 5 players take on the role of planetary caretakers, building out biodiverse environments using cards that represent things like flora, terrain, ecosystems, and climate. In each game, you'll start with a unique island, climate, and ecosystem combo, giving you different powers and endgame goals. From there, it's all about strategically playing cards to your 4x4 grid and triggering powerful combos. The action system is simple but clever. On your turn, you'll choose one of the 4 actions: plant, compost, water, or grow. When you take an action, everyone else also gets a weaker version of that action, so you're always engaged even on other players' turns. Earth is a true engine builder. As the game goes on, the more your cards will start to synergize, letting you grow trees and compost soil and bloom an incredible ecosystem that's both efficient and beautiful. Whoever scores the most points wins. So now let's take a look at Animal Kingdom. Animal Kingdom is an expansion, so you will need the base game in order to play, and you can also combine it with the other expansion for Earth, Abundance. So now I think maybe we'll do just a little unboxing, so I'm just going to move Earth out of the way, and we are going to focus on Animal Kingdom. Let's open it up. All right, so let's take a look inside the box. Before we get started, I do want to mention this is a prototype, so the things that you see may be subject to change. As an example, the animal cards that you are going to see do not currently have flavor text on them, which of course they will when the game has been finalized. But let's take a dive in and see what's in the box. So first, we have some extra components here, including 50 sprouts and 20 extra canopies. Now, these are what you would typically see in Earth as well as in Abundance. It's just giving you more of the resources that you may need to play the expansion. So these would be your canopies, and the green cubes would be your sprouts. So 50 sprouts and 20 canopies. We also have 36 double-sided animal cards, and like I mentioned, in the final game, these will have flavor text, but as of right now, they just have the abilities. On one side, they're going to have a global ability, and on the reverse side, it's going to be the animal ability, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we kind of get into how the expansion works. But I would like to show you just a couple of them because they're so cute. Now, of course, I'm Canadian, so I must show you the Canadian beaver. Adorable. We do, of course, have some red pandas. And you gotta love a ring-tailed lemur. Everybody loves a Boombafoo. If you didn't, I just don't know. I just don't know about you. I do love myself a nice polar bear, a Highland cow. I love it. So there are 36 different double-sided animal cards inside of the box. The last thing that you'll find in the box is 56 Animeeples in 36 shapes. So some of the animals will have multiple Animeeples. Now the Animeeples may look a little bit different as well. They may be working on some of the saturation and things like that on the Animeeples, but all of the animals are going to have their own meeple. So here's that ring-tailed lemur that we just looked at. There's our friend the Canadian beaver, of course the polar bear. Like I mentioned, 36 shapes, 56 different Animeeples in the bag. And I don't know if you knew this about me, but I freaking love Animeeples. I love them. I think they're so cute. I wish every game had Animeeples, even if they don't have animals in them. They should just come with them for fun. Like, look at that red panda. I mean, Come on. The box, of course, will also come with a rule book and a score pad, but those are not included in my prototype, but just know, obviously, you will get those in your box. Now that we've seen the components, let's talk about how to use them. Now, the objective in Animal Kingdom remains the same. Players are going to compete to earn as many victory points as possible. Players will score points for the value of flora and event cards, for growth and sprouts placed on their flora, for cards in their compost, and for ecosystem, fauna, terrain, and animal bonus points. To set up for Animal Kingdom, you will need to form the animal deck, and you will do that by shuffling all the cards with the animal icon together. The animal icon looks like this right here. So you're going to shuffle all of these together with the global ability side face down. You'll draw the top animal card and place its global ability side face up within view of all players. I do want to also mention, as you're kind of looking at the board, obviously the current state is essentially a finished game of Earth, so please ignore that current state. We are just going to be focusing on the Animal Kingdom expansion right now. If you're like, the 4x4 grids are done, your game is over. Don't I know it? Players will draft their animal cards by flipping the animal deck so that the global ability side is face up. You'll deal 4 cards to each player. Let's take a closer look at an animal card so you know exactly what you're looking at. This is an example of an animal card. Like I've already mentioned, you have the global ability on one side and you have the animal ability, the animal card on the other side. So there's a few things that you're going to see, and let's just start out here by looking at Gunnison's Prairie Dog, shall we? So here we have the global ability, and there is a choose one option. These are going to be different on all of the cards. So this is just some instructions for the global ability. When we flip it over here, we are going to see stars at the top. Now the stars are going to represent complexity of that animal. We also have, and maybe I'll show you 2 different ones here, we also have the Meeple icons in the top right-hand corner. So for the peafowl here, you will see 1 Meeple, whereas over here for the prairie dog, it's going to ask for 5 of the same meeples. Then it's going to give you some information as well as the animal's ability, which you'll be able to trigger throughout the game. So this is once again going to be different depending on which animal you have. Players will begin the draft by selecting 1 card to keep and passing the remaining 3 clockwise. After receiving 3 cards, each player selects 1 to keep and passes the other 2 clockwise. At this point, each player will have 4 cards, 2 they set aside and 2 that were passed to them. Players will then review these 4 cards and keep 1 or 2 depending on the chosen game difficulty. Now, if you're playing beginner or standard, you're going to keep 1. And for an advanced game, you'll keep 2. So in this situation, I might want to keep my common loon. Each player will place their selected animal card with the Meeple icon face up in their play area. You will then collect the matching Meeple or Meeples and place them on top of your card. So let's go ahead and do that. So I have my loon, place them on my card, and the capybaras, they get 5. Woo! A lot of capybaras. All of the other animal cards and their Meeples, as well as the Meeple matching the global ability card, are returned to the box as they will not be used for this game. So you can already see just within this 2-player game, we're only using 3 of these animal cards. There are, like I said, 36 different cards, which means there's a ton of variety and variability that comes in this expansion. Now, there are a few new icons that you may encounter in Animal Kingdom, though if you've played the Abundance expansion, you may already be familiar with some of them. The first icon is Used Leaf, which is one that has been placed on the fauna board or has been converted. Then we have Canopies, which is a canopy from your tableau, such as this one right here. Next we have Seed, a seed resource, only applicable if you're also playing with the Abundance expansion, and if you're familiar, that would be these seed tokens right here. Then finally, we have only other players may gain the benefit, meaning only other players, not you. So if you trigger something that has this, all other players will receive the benefit. but you won't. This expansion introduces animal abilities and global abilities. These new additions will modify the turn structure of the game. Anytime a player uses a leaf, they may activate the ability of their animals. So you'll remember we have 4 leaves starting out on our board. So like I mentioned before, the animals all have abilities on their card. So anytime a player uses a leaf, they may activate the ability of their animal. Leaves can be used for a few different reasons, one of which is completing one of these objectives that are up here on the fauna board. Now, if you were to place out one of your leaves because you had completed one of these things, then you will be able to trigger your animal's ability. And at the end of the round, when the active player token passes from the last player to the starting player, it activates the global ability card. So that is another new step that is introduced with this expansion. Let's take a closer look at how the animal abilities work. Now, a player can activate their animal abilities immediately after using a leaf to perform one of the following actions: by placing a leaf on the fauna board, either to claim a fauna objective or tableau completion bonus, or you may activate animal abilities by discarding a leaf from play. But keep in mind, if you discard a leaf from play, it is no longer available to you to complete one of these objectives. So you kind of have to balance out whether or not that's going to be worth it for you. If you're also playing with the Abundance expansion, when discarding or converting a leaf, you may activate their animal abilities and gain 1 seed. There are a few more things to note. Only the player who used the leaf may activate their animal abilities. And activating animal abilities is always optional. And a player may only use an ability if they can fully satisfy its requirements. Let's take a closer look at the ability on our common loon. When first activated, place the common loon on a card that has the water symbol. As an example, our beefsteak fungus has a water symbol, so we could place him over here. Then the ability. Move from a water card to another water card in the furthest column from the occupied flora. If the furthest column does not have a water, you cannot perform this action. Remove up to 2 sprouts, which once again are the green cubes, from the previously occupied flora and place them here. Now, this is going to give you plus 7 points per 2 sprouts that are on this card. So you want to be moving your loon around, collecting sprouts from your board in order to score more points at the end of the game. Let's take a look at an example of how that might work. Now, I placed my loon here on the beefsteak fungus card, which has the water symbol. So I would move my loon all the way to the furthest column with a card that has the water symbol. And luckily, I do have the forest edge, which has that. Then I would be able to remove 2 sprouts from the card that I left in order to put them right here. So I'd be collecting those sprouts once again in order to score more points at the end of the game. In the advanced game, a single activation will allow the player to trigger one or both of their animal abilities in the order of their choosing. A player must complete an animal's ability in full before activating the second animal ability. So keep that in mind. We are currently doing examples for the beginner or standard game, but like I said before, if you're playing an advanced game, you would have 2 animal cards. Animeeples are not placed onto a player's tableau until the player activates their animal or animals for the first time by using a leaf. This initial placement counts as one movement for the purposes of interpreting abilities and movement requirements, which will come into play when we are looking at different abilities of different animals. If listed, follow the placement conditions on the animal card as we did with the loon, placing them on a card that had a water symbol. If the animal has more than one animeeple, the placement condition will be followed each time the animeeple is placed on your tableau, which we can see as an example here with the capybara, who has 5 animeeples. So for theirs, just to give you an example of how one with multiple figures would work, each time the capybara is activated, place a new capybara on an unoccupied card with this symbol right here. It will remain there for the rest of the game. So it would be smart for this player to build out their tableau with a bunch of cards with that symbol, so as they continue to activate, they will be able to continue to place their capybaras out. Now the ability is for each capybara on your tableau, you can remove one sprout from their occupied card and grow +2, split any way between their occupied cards and the 8 adjacent flora. So the capybaras are going to allow you to grow up your trees more and in more adjacent spaces. So that's how a multi-animeeple card might work. Otherwise, if an animal ability restricts movement, example, only moving on a flora type or a habitat type, the animeeple's initial placement must follow those requirements. If its ability has no movement requirements, you may place it on a card anywhere on your tableau. Now, of course, as we already talked about, the common loon does have movement requirements because it is going from the water card to another water card. And by water, of course, I mean wet. That's what the water drop symbol means. Some animals have placement conditions that require an animeeple to stay on the card it was placed on, while others move as indicated by their ability. And animeeple movement is always optional, but is often required for the ability to take effect, such as with our common loon. When an animeeple moves, it follows one of these movement rules: move up to, move to, or move exactly. When moving up to or exactly X cards, an animeeple can move orthogonally or diagonally from the card they currently occupy to any adjacent card that satisfies the requirements of the animal's ability. Once again, this is telling us to move from a wet card to another wet card in the furthest column from the occupied flora. So our loon could do this, it could do this, it could do this, and it could do this. So it has more movement because it may also go diagonal, but it still needs to go to the furthest column available as it's traveling along that path. Just note that a player's tableau does not wrap around, so cards on the far left are not adjacent to those on the far right, and cards on the top row are not adjacent to those on the bottom row. So just as an FYI. An animeeple cannot backtrack, move through, or end its movement on any card it occupied earlier in this activation, including the card occupied at the start of the activation. However, on future activations, animeeples can move to cards occupied during previous turns. Animeeples cannot move to or through spaces of a player's tableau that are empty. So, let's go back to that loon. He wouldn't be able to zip over here because we have an empty space right here. Okay, so the empty spaces are going to cut off some of those routes. In the advanced game, animeeples of different species may occupy the same card. The animeeple can move up to X cards away from its starting position. The next thing would be that the animeeple can move up to X cards away from its starting position. The animeeple will move directly to a card that meets the specified condition. If more than one card qualifies, the player can choose which card the animeeple will move to. And if no cards qualify, the animeeple does not move and the ability has no effect, because remember, you need to be able to completely fulfill the ability in order to use it. The animeeple moves exactly X cards away from its starting position, meaning partial movement is not allowed. So if it says that you can only move 2 spaces, then you couldn't stop 1 space forward. You'd have to move the full 2 spaces. There are 4 types of animal abilities, so now is a good time to maybe show you some examples of the 4 different types of abilities that you will encounter in this game. The first is those that produce resources during the game, and the example is going to be with the Thompson's Gazelle. So let's take a look here. Now, their ability is to move up to 3 times, and you can grow 1 on each floor the Thompson's Gazelle moved onto this turn. So the Gazelle is going to be hopping around your tableau, helping the trees grow, meaning that they are producing resources. And resources produced by an animal ability are typically added to the player's tableau. These resources may be collected as desired, partially or in full, as long as the player can accommodate them in their tableau. The next is those that convert resources during the game, and our example is going to be the platypus. I love a platypus. I think they're so cute. Move up to 2 times. From each floor the platypus moved onto this turn, you can discard a sprout, remember that's one of your green cubes, in order to draw 2 cards into your hand. Next, we have those that allow a player to activate abilities, such as the Komodo dragon. So for their ability, move exactly 1 time. Activate any red abilities that the Komodo dragon moved onto this turn and then draw 1 card. So you'll see here we have lots of red abilities going on, and that symbol corresponds with this symbol right here, okay? Lastly, we have those that provide endgame scoring opportunities, and the example for that is the common loon, which we've already covered. So if you'll remember, the common loon is going to be collecting sprouts from their tableau, placing them on this card, scoring 7 points for every 2 sprouts on this card for the end of the game. It's pretty big. All animals that provide endgame scoring opportunities have a storage area on their card, and only resources generated or manipulated by an animal's ability can be placed in the storage area, but there is no storage limit, but the resources in storage remain there permanently and cannot be spent, converted, or moved to a player's tableau. Now it's time, I think, to take a closer look at global abilities, because you'll remember every animal card not only has their own ability, but it also has a global ability. That's right, dual purpose cards. 1 global ability card is used per game, activating for all players each time the active player token is passed from the last player in turn order to the starting player. Now there are 4 types of global abilities, and I'm going to show you an example for each one, so let me just grab those cards. So the first type is those that produce resources during the game, and the example for this one is going to be the polar bear. Gain a compost from hand action based on the number of cards in your tableau with both the snowflake or the cold and wet symbols. 1 card equals +2 compost, 2 to 3 cards equals +3, and 4 plus cards equals +5 compost from hand. Next, we have those that convert resources during the game, such as our friends, the red pandas. Now, their global ability is choose one of the following, and we have 3 options. Discard 1 growth, or kind of 1 little tree stump from a tree, and then you can draw 2 cards into hand. Second one would be to discard 3 from a tree and draw 4 cards into your hand. And the third option is to discard 5 from your tableau and draw 6 cards into your hand. Got to have a good tree business, which the capybaras, they'd be having a great tree business. I'm not going to lie to you. Next, we have those that allow a player to activate abilities such as the Indian peafowl. So let's take a look at them. They also have a choose 1 ability. Activate a green card, so one of your flora cards, which is green, so you can see there's typically a bunch of those within your tableau, or you can spend and discard 2 of your sprouts to activate all of your green cards, or you can compost 1 card from your hand. And last but not least, we have those that provide endgame scoring opportunities, such as our friend the mountain goat. Their card reads, choose 1. Remove 1 sprout from a cloud card. So as an example, right here, we have a cloud card. So we could remove 1 sprout from that. Option B is discard a compost, or as I like to call them, poop tokens. Remove 1 sprout from 2 different cloud cards, or discard 1 compost and 1 growth or tree stump and remove 1 sprout from 3 different cloud cards. Place the removed sprouts on your island card. You're going to get +2 points per sprout on your island at the end of the game. Each player will resolve the global ability independently and must forego its effect if they lack the requirements or choose not to use it. If a global ability offers a choice, each player makes their own choice. So just because I might want to choose choice A on the red panda doesn't mean that everybody has to do the same thing. Only resources generated or manipulated by the global ability can be placed on a player's tableau. Once again, there's no storage limit, but resources on there remain permanently and cannot be spent, converted, or moved to a player's tableau. So as an example, with the mountain goat, if we are going to be placing some of our sprouts onto our island card, then those cannot then be removed to use them for different things. I would also like to mention that we do have a few cards in the box that you'll see the letter A on. If the card has an A, like as an example with the chipmunk, that's because their abilities use seeds. So you must also be playing with the abundance expansion in order to use these animals. So they can't just be used with a regular base game. They can, however, be used if you're combining all of the expansions, abundance, and animal kingdom. Speaking of that, you can mix and match and play Animal Kingdom with just the base game or also with abundance. So once again, adding even more variety and variability into your play. And that, my friends, is pretty much everything that you need to know about the Animal Kingdom expansion for Earth. Like I said, all of these different animal cards, all 36, are going to give you a different way to play and interact with Earth, which is a game, like I've already said, I know people love Earth, which is great. It's great to love the Earth. So if you are interested in the Animal Kingdom expansion for Earth, I'm going to have the links and everything that you need to know in the description of this video, so definitely go check it out if it sounds like something that you might be interested in. If you haven't played the base game of Earth before, you can always try it out on Board Game Arena if you would like. Please feel free to join the Foster the Meeple Discord, and if you want to play Earth, I'll play Earth with you. I'm actually playing a solo game right now on BGA, because every now and then I like to play a solo game on BGA, but we can play that there, and that's a good time for me to mention that, of course, Earth does have a solo mode, and you will be able to play with Animal Kingdom in the solo mode. Those rules are still being developed, but they will be ready for the Kickstarter. But I think, my friends, that is everything that I have to show you today, except that I didn't get to show you. Did I show you the prairie dog? Oh, I wanted to show you this pig. I think he's adorable and I love him so much. If you are interested in buying board games like the base game of Earth, which is currently out, or the Abundance expansion, you should first start by checking your friendly local gaming store. For us, that's the Boardroom Game Cafe. Once again, we're going to go to Kickstarter for Animal Kingdom, links below. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like what you see, please subscribe. I hope to see you again soon. And don't forget to please be kind to the Earth, because it's the only one we got. Be nice to cows and beavers. Goodbye. We need a polar bear. That's a really fat pig. Please, whoop. And the prairie dogs. Oh my God. They're all cute. Well, I don't know about the termite, but there's a fly if you're into that kind of... Oh, snow goose. Ooh. I found one of my favorites. The Canada Jay. And everybody loves quokka. Anyways, I'm getting distracted.